Hey everyone, we got to see Fantastic Four First Steps, and here's our thoughts. I'm Caden.
I'm Brianna.
So I like this movie quite a bit, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's the third best superhero movie I've seen this year.
Oh, third best superhero movie you've
Yeah,
seen this year. Okay,
I,
what's the definitive
I
ranking?
think definitively I like Superman and Thunderbolts more than this movie.
Okay.
That being said, I think this movie is still pretty solid. It is the best Fantastic Four movie we've gotten. I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. But, at the same time, that's not a very high bar.
The bar is very, very low. I
But
just
that being said, the cast in this is phenomenal. Like it is a very good cast, and I can't like
yes.
stress that enough. Like I was one of the people that was very anti Pedro Pascal playing Reed Richards. Like I was like, why? Like it just felt like stunt casting for me. But seeing him in this, I'm like, oh wow, he's actually able to embody the character in a way that I think the previous actors that have portrayed Reed haven't. And Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm is the star of the movie. I
Yes.
think realistically, it's her and Pascal's movie, but for me, she is the standout. Like she is Sue Storm in this
Yes.
movie, and I think I can say that for most of the cast. But with what those two in particular are given to do in this film, I will say like it is a really solid movie. It's just I think we've just been had a lot of good superhero movies, so it's the weakest of the three. But that being said, I still think this is a movie worth seeing in the theaters.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. And I agree with you about the characters. I think that they're just the casting is really good. And I know people are kind of sick of seeing Pedro Pascal and things, but he did just such a wonderful job with the character. And I agree. I feel that same way about um just their portrayals of each of the characters. They all felt distinct and unique and didn't feel like it had been something that had been done 100 times before. So that was really refreshing. It was really great to feel like that the characters were something similar to things that I had read in Fantastic Four comics.
Yeah. Well, Pascal in particular, he plays a very vulnerable Reed, and I think that's what's so interesting about it is I haven't seen that really from Pascal a lot, at least
Yeah.
in the sense that it is a vulnerability that is like earnest in the sense that this is a guy that is the smartest man on earth, but like it also comes with like the highest anxiety on earth because he's solving problems because he can see everything coming and he's trying to address that. I think that's really interesting, where I think, well, and it's also fun because he is the leader of the Fantastic Four, but it really feels like Sue Storm is the one that's in charge. She's, the emotional core. She's the glue of this team. And she's really the one that I think is the leader of the team in a lot of ways. It's not Mr. Fantastic, it's Sue. And I think that's a really interesting thing. Like I know Vanessa Kirby was like, oh, Reed is the most like intelligent man on the
Right.
planet, but Sue is the most like emotionally intelligent woman on the planet. And I actually think that carries through a lot in the film.
Yeah, yeah, not that, you ever really need justification for, like, Sue and Richard to be together, but, it is something that I really enjoyed about her portrayal where it's like, "Oh, yeah, you've got these counterbalances to each other," and I guess along with that, the character interactions, the individual moments between characters, the members of the Fantastic Four, those were my favorite part of the movie by
Yeah.
far, was just watching them interact with each other for
Yeah,
sure.
and I think I guess my biggest gripe with this movie is I think it could potentially have been better than Thunderbolts, um, because the character interactions are so strong. We get a really good sense of not just how these characters play off of each other, but emotionally who they each are. And even like I would say the character that has the least to do in this movie is the Thing, played by Eben Moss Bachrach. I think is how you pronounce it, and you know, which is nice because this version of the Thing, they've been the Fantastic Four for some amount of time, and he's not upset with Reed. He's kind of come to terms with being the Thing, but it still clearly bothers him in a lot of ways. And we get to see that in a lot of subtle, like emotional ways. And I think it's really interesting that, they went in this different direction. But at the same time, even though he has less to do, we get a really good sense of who his Ben Grimm is, who this guy is as a person, what he struggles with. I think there was a little bit left on the cutting room floor with him in particular.
Mm.
There's some interactions with the character that I'm like, okay, this isn't really developed in any like meaningful way. So I think there was more off to the side, but you know while we get a good sense of these characters and the interactions are fun to play, I think the third act is what's weak about this movie. It does feel a little bit paint by numbers. And even though I don't think it directly, it's a better version of a previous Fantastic Four movie for me. It does feel like the third act is a better version of Rise of the Silver Surfer in a lot of ways, with one thing in particular. But overall, I think this is a movie that is worth seeing. I just think that 2025 has just been a really good year for this genre. And even though this is the weakest of the bunch, I think if it had come out last year, it would have been the best superhero movie of last year
Oh,
or the
yeah,
year
by
before.
far, honestly.
Yeah, like this is one of the better Marvel movies to come out in the past few years. I think I enjoyed it more than Deadpool and Wolverine. Even though that was fun to watch, this is just a better movie.
Just a good movie all the way around, for
It's just
sure.
not as strong as Thunderbolts and Superman for me.
Right.
But
So, I guess, is it just what would have pushed it over the edge for you is just if that
I think
3rd act
I
was
think if that third
stronger?
act was a little bit stronger, like I don't
Yeah.
know, like, and I've been thinking about it. I don't have like an alternative that I would have liked to have seen. Like it felt like the pretty natural conclusion, but at the same time, the third act did feel very paint by numbers for me.
Right.
Um, I enjoyed some parts of the third act quite a bit. Like Johnny's arc in the third act, I really liked, and
Loved
I
that.
really liked what he was doing. But it felt like and this was something I said when we left the theaters. I didn't think that they made very dynamic use of the powers of the four. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
Sue got a lot of play and got
Yes.
some interesting play that than she previously did in the other movies. And Johnny got some good use, but I think Reed and Ben, there wasn't a whole lot to do. It was just like, yeah, he kind of stretches, he's kind of strong, but we don't get anything beyond that. Um, I don't know. Should we just move into spoilers? Do you think? I think we've said. Is there anything that you want to say non-spoiler related? What's your stamp of approval on this movie before we move on? Did you think it was better than Thunderbolts?
I have a hard time picking, really, because I love Thunderbolts and it was really, really good. So I think I'll have to see it again. I think I'll have to see Fantastic Four again to decide definitively which one I like more. But I do agree with you. There were a few moments in the third act where I was like, "Oh, this feels like it could be a little stronger." Um, but I think for me, the plot is always going to be secondary to the characters,
Yeah,
and the character interactions in Thunderbolts are good. But I liked these ones, I think, just a little better. I liked the
the relationships
natural.
have been built.
Yes.
They feel
Yes.
previously existing. Where Thunderbolts is all these characters meeting each other for the first time. Where this
Yep.
feels like a lived-in world. And
Yes.
it's a different universe than the main MCU.
Comes with
And
less baggage.
it comes with less baggage, but it feels like there's a history there. And I guess that this is a bonus, is this and Superman. I think Superman did it better. Both of these worlds, they're the first time we've seen these worlds, but they feel lived in. They mention all the major, 60s Fantastic Four villains off screen.
Right.
They exist over there. We've dealt with them, and I think that's fun. But yeah, I think it's just a little bit weaker than the other two that have come out this year.
Are you sad we didn't get to see more of that establishing stuff?
Yeah, well, and I think I think it's been more or less confirmed that they had like an opening montage of them fighting all these villains.
And I
At,
guess
le-
that was a
at
part of
least
my.
fighting John Malkovich's Red Ghost
Right.
and the
I
space.
guess D and I don't know if this is goes in the spoiler section or not, but do you feel like that there is more of this movie that we didn't see that we should have seen? Do you feel like there's some
Yeah,
extended
so
version
I guess
somewhere?
before we move to spoilers, yes, I'd say that's actually my biggest gripe with the movie is it's trim. I think it's just under 2 hours,
Yeah.
and it feels a little too trim for me. I think, if we got to live in the world a little bit more and like, just kind of soak in it a little bit, I think it would have been a little bit better than what happened. That being said, we saw another movie recently where the first act took forever. Well, I guess this is the closest thing we'll get to a Jurassic Park rebirth or a Jurassic World rebirth review.
Right.
Is it took forever to get going, and this movie did not. So that's a benefit. But
Yeah, the
that
pacing, I do feel like the pacing was really good in
the
Fantastic Four.
pacing is brisk. Yeah,
Yes.
it's very good. I think it might be the best paced out of the three films that have come
Mm,
out this year.
yeah.
But I still think I would have liked to live in the world a little bit more to understand it. Like they've established a lot of stuff.
Well, it's
Um,
such a pleasant place to be, like, I wouldn't have
mhm,
minded being there for a little
a
longer
little bit
before they
longer.
go off to the other universe that I am not totally happy with at this
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, so let's move into spoilers. So, if you just wanted to know our initial reactions to movies, we liked it. It sounds like Brianna liked it a little bit more than I did. But as far as spoilers are concerned, yeah, I just wish that we got like a little bit more from like Galactus in the third act. Like it just feels like
Yeah. He
the
was just
fact
a
okay,
big bad. He didn't
he's
really
just
have
a
a
big bat.
whole
Well, and he doesn't feel
personality.
it doesn't feel like he's a force of nature, but they don't really explore that in any
No.
interesting way for me. It just feels like he does become a bad guy because the whole plot of the movie is, and I think at this point you've seen it in the trailers and we're in spoilers, so I don't care. Sue's pregnant. She gives birth to Franklin, and Galactus wants the baby.
Give me the baby.
Give me the baby. Because he's like, and this is established in the comics, is that like Franklin could potentially become the next Galactus. He's the one that's supposed to survive this universe and become the Galactus of the next universe. And I'm like, yeah, I thought it was fun, and I think it's really cool that they did that. I'm stoked to see Franklin Richards in a
Yeah.
Fantastic Four movie.
Yes.
But the last act of the movie just felt like them chasing Galactus around New York, and it was
Yeah.
boring for
Yeah,
me.
it looked kinda cool, like, I
It
was
was
happy
good.
with how it
It The
looked. It was
effects
awesome.
looked good. I've heard some people complain about the Fantastic Car and how it looks. I don't necessarily think it looked terrible.
No, I liked it. I guess it wasn't remarkable, I guess,
The
but
only thing that I looked bad to me was occasionally there was a CGI baby, and
oh,
I
the
thought it was
CGI baby.
distractingly the fact that, like, that is a thing in superhero movies now, between The Flash, this, and Superman, like, the fact that CG babies are a thing is weird to me. Um,
Right.
I don't know, just accept the fact that babies can't do certain things and just don't have them in those scenes, or, because the big thing is the joke online is that they do the SpongeBob joke where they take Bikini Bottom and push it over there.
Right.
Because that's Reed's plan. They go see Silver Surfer shows up. She's like, "Hey, Galactus is coming." They go try to reason with him, and he says, "I won't eat your planet if
Give
you
me
give me
your
the
baby.
kid." Yeah, which is just the trolley car, but
Yeah, for real.
but with
You're
a
telling
baby.
me that Reed has never thought about this scenario
Well,
before?
and I guess that's the other interesting thing is I love the fact that there's a scene where the other three of the group, Johnny, Ben, and Sue, get upset with Reed because he thinks about it.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, that's totally in keeping with his character. And
Yes.
I don't think it's irrational to have considered it at all. And he's like, hey, I thought about it. That's my job.
I'm
That's
not gonna
my
do it, but I
I'm
thought
not
about
gonna
it,
do it,
yeah.
but I considered it. But I think it's also great that they are emotional enough to understand that like they think he's monstrous for it, even though like when you're detached from it, you get it, but
Right.
in the moment you get that. And then there's this amazing interplay between Sue and Reed before Franklin is born,
Yes.
where Reed is like the overprotective parent. He's having Herbie baby proof the entire Baxter building, and it's a great sequence. We keep seeing Herbie get in the way of Ben. Like
Yes.
he sets up a baby gate, Ben trips over it. That's my second favorite joke in the movie.
Very good details all the way. Like, I like how the jokes in this movie are, like, for the most part, subtle, right? Like,
Yes.
obviously, there are laugh out loud jokes scattered throughout the movie, but my
Mhm.
favorite ones are the ones where it's like, "Oh, that was really clever," and I didn't have to, like it's not like it was right in my face, it was
Well,
just a
and it's
clever
born out
little
of the fact that this is what happens when you live with people is, you're so used to something
Right.
that when somebody changes something, it's foreign.
Yes.
But it's Sue is he's like, hey, there might be, we have altered DNA. There could be something wrong with her kid. How do we prepare for this? And Sue is the one saying, hey, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. But then when she goes into labor, the roles are reversed, and all of her anxiety that she'd been tampering down comes out, and Reed has to be the one that, has to be the soothing one.
Yeah.
I actually cried in the theaters when this played out because I was like, oh man, this feels real. This feels like a real relationship,
Right.
and these feel like real concerns that a parent would have. And I thought that was really good. And realistically, I think if that emotional core of that movie was carried throughout all three acts, I think this could be potentially my favorite movie of the year, or at
Yeah.
least superhero movie of the year.
I agree, and I think I too shed a single tear, but not at that scene, and I feel like that kind of where that emotional, the emotional core kind of not that it disappears, but it
It's
doesn't
still
feel like
there.
it's strong,
Mhm.
is after, like, you hear the radio host, like, talking as everybody is going down to, the underground place. What is it
Yeah,
called?
so they've essentially the world turns on them briefly because they
Right.
won't give over Franklin, and so Reed convinces them. He's like, "No, we can teleport Earth to another solar system, and Galactus won't find us." So they have to do rally the world to get everybody in New York onto Subterraria, where the Mole Man is there, which was fun.
Hooray, Mole
Again,
Man.
it felt like we were missing a scene from him like earlier. I'm like, okay, like
Yes.
this guy's a character. They have a history, and it's fun to see that. I wish we could have seen like a little bit more of establishing that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of my main complaints about the movie is that there's this scene, right, where they're all going down underground and you hear this radio host in the background saying like, "Hey, this should be a reminder." I'm going to totally butcher this. Remember that this should be a reminder to everyone that individuals who are dedicated and passionate, like, they can make the real difference, and most frequently, like, they are the ones making the real difference. And I think one of my complaints that we talked a little bit about when we were coming out of the theater was the idea that you get to see that with the Fantastic Four, but not with anybody else. Even though I feel
No,
like that there are good characters that exist, in the universe there, you don't get the chance to really see them do anything
yeah,
that
because
contributes to the overall theme of the movie.
there's this weird implication in this universe that like the Fantastic Four are this world's superheroes, this world's pop culture icons, but there's also like this weird like political element. Not I don't mean political in any way, but the Future Foundation in this universe is a UN stand-in, or as an addition to the UN, where the Fantastic Four leads it seemingly to better the world. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting, but I want to see how the rest of the world is stepping up to match them. And
Yes.
there's one character who is like the future I think she's the Future Foundation's like either like liaison or president, who's seemingly friends with Sue, but like you barely learn her name.
Right.
I think it's Lynn.
I
And
think
then
so.
she doesn't really have anything to do. And I'm like, okay, if you gave this character something to do over here, or Ben has a romantic love interest and she doesn't have anything to do.
No.
And I don't know. I just feel like it could be
And Mole
developed a
Man.
little bit more. And Mole Man, like
Yeah.
there's just a lot of that. And then I feel like by the end, when it just becomes them chasing, Galactus who's chasing a baby,
Right.
it the threads kind of come apart, and you can see there's a lot of writers on this movie, and I feel like, okay, this is clearly the last, this was either the first draft of the script like that they stuck to this ending, or the last draft that they just tacked on, that I feel like it wasn't developed in any like meaningful way.
Right.
um but then there's another part is, I said this when we left the theater. If I had two nickels for every time Sue Storm like overexerted herself and died in a movie, I'd have two nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened
Weird that it
twice
happened
because
twice, yeah.
the Silver Surfer destroys all like the teleporters across the world, and there's only one left in New York. So instead of teleporting themselves, they're going to teleport Galactus away. And she uses all of her energy to push Galactus in there, and she dies,
Right.
which I think would work if I didn't see Jessica Alba do the exact same thing in Rise of the Silver Surfer. And granted, this is much better. This, it has a much more emotional effect. It works. Of course, she gets resurrected by Franklin because he's, Marvel Jesus baby.
I feel so dumb because I seriously, like, I'm not as familiar with the Fantastic Four world and everything. And so when Sue started giving her like speech at the like climax of the movie, right, where she was like, "We're gonna do this as a family," which is great. I loved that speech. It's
Mhm.
fantastic. But I was like, "Oh, Sue's gonna die in this movie." Like, I knew you knew like way from the
I knew
beginning,
the
but
second I saw that shot in the trailer, I
in
was
the
like, yeah,
trailer.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But
Well, and the
it
second I
it
figured Franklin was that in it, I was like, yeah.
well, that was the thing. I felt so dumb because I was like, "Oh, Sue's gonna die," and I was like, "That's really interesting. Like, what are they gonna do? Like, how is it gonna be the Fantastic Four?" And it took me until like I think it's Ben hands
Yeah, well, this is where the
like the
CG
baby
baby
to
gets
right.
distracting.
Yes, and then Reed like puts Franklin on Sue's dead body, and and then I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so dumb." Like Franklin, obviously.
Yeah,
So
no. Well, it's because Galactus says he's special, and says he has all this cosmic power.
Right.
But Reed and Sue are like, hey, we've ran all these tests. No, he doesn't. And there's like, no, he's hiding it from you. And then we don't see that till the very end where he saves Sue and brings her back to life.
Hooray, Jesus, baby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hooray, Jesus, baby. I think one of the best texts I got out of this movie from somebody else who had seen it was, is Franklin Richards the new Marvel Jesus replacing Deadpool?
That is really funny.
But like I think I enjoyed it. It feels like it kind of falls apart towards the end, and I think it's because and you can't do this because the original Coming of Galactus story is like a Cold War story.
Right.
But the idea of Reed like being like, yeah, I'm gonna blow all of us up and take you with us if you don't leave the
He's got
effing
the
planet.
crazy eyes.
Yeah, like with the ultimate nullifier, I think is a little bit more interesting than seeing him chase the kid.
Right.
I like the Silver Surfer in this movie.
I was gonna ask. Yeah.
I never cared. Like, it's the Silver Surfer. If you change the gender, whatever, it just gives Johnny a love interest,
Right.
in the sense that,
Which I liked. I thought that was fun.
and they talked a lot about, they were like, oh, the way Johnny's previously been portrayed doesn't really fit with our modern way. And it's like, oh, no,
Right.
Johnny's portrayed the exact same way he's been portrayed in every other movie. He's just less of a dick.
He doesn't suck so much.
Yeah, it's like he's actually funny instead of just a huge asshole.
Right. Yeah, he feels like an annoying little brother and not
Mhm.
like and not like a total
Like, not like a
lame-o
bully.
or like, oh, man, I hate you. Yeah.
Yeah. And they give him something to do because he's the one that wants to go back out into space, and he's studying, like, he essentially has all these alien like signals, radio signals that they've collected. And
Right.
so he has this linguistic element where he convinces Shalabal to turn against Galactus by playing back her message and being like, you've destroyed all these civilizations, like,
Right.
congratulations. Like,
Yeah,
and I
I'm
think
just trying to do for my world what you did for
for
yours.
yours. And I
Right.
think that's really interesting that it gives Johnny like an arc. It's just I don't know, the only person that doesn't have a significant like arc in this movie is Ben.
Is Ben. And
Eh,
don't get me wrong, like, it does feel like that to a certain extent that already happened off screen.
we've already tackled it in other movies.
Right. And I really like Ben in this
Yeah.
movie. I haven't ever liked Ben in a movie before, and so
Mhm.
it was nice to really like his character and everything and have him be like the warmer, softer side of him as opposed to
Yeah. The angry,
the angry,
like,
hard
yeah,
side of him.
disgruntled side, the
Yeah,
rocky
the
side.
rock side, yeah.
Yeah.
That was really nice, but it did feel like that he was just kind of a stagnant character and there wasn't a whole lot of
Yeah, well,
change
and they
for
kind
him.
of hint that he might have a change.
Right.
His character arc is that he grows a beard, which looks great.
Hooray! Rock
Uh,
beard.
I do like the idea of him, like, having to take like a like sander down to his face and like chisel it down. Like, that was funny.
Very funny.
But I think, well, even like when he finally says it's clobbering time, I'm like, just it doesn't hit the way I wish it
Yeah.
would. And
That
even
seems to be the only build up in his character, and then it seems like the release of that is not even
it's not as good.
prominent.
And I
Yeah.
think it's like I think it might have been a sound mixing thing. Or
I
they
didn't
just
feel
went with
anything when he
they
said
just
it.
they just didn't go with the right take.
Right.
I wish it was a little bit stronger. And if that was just his arc, is the fact that he accepted his catchphrase, I would have been
Right.
there for it. That being
Yeah.
said, the post-credit scene, there's the Doom one, which whatever, it's like we don't even see Doom. Franklin's a little bit older, whatever. But the other post-credit scene where we see the animated intro to the Fantastic Four cartoon in this universe was great. My only complaint, I wish it was the 90s theme.
I know, man. Nothing can beat the 90s theme.
I got
It's
really excited for a second. I was like, is it gonna be the 90s
oh
theme?
my gosh, and then it wasn't, but that's okay, and it wasn't as good either, which is,
But it
clearly you
doesn't need to
can't
be.
beat a classic. Can't beat a
Yeah,
a timeless classic.
you know, I can't. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a great theme. If you haven't
It's
listened to it, just go listen to it right now. It's
oh,
the
yeah.
best.
I
But
quote it weekly,
I
daily,
think we quote it
maybe.
daily.
Maybe daily.
Yeah. But I don't know. Do you have any other closing thoughts before we wrap it up on this video?
Oh, I don't think so. Really, it's generally like a very good movie. Probably
It's a good movie.
will be, even if we go see other kinds of movies, we will in the theaters this year. This is just gonna stay at
Yeah.
in the top rankings of the movies I've seen probably in the past few years. and I was super happy with it. I just had such an enjoyable time watching it. I will
Mhm.
happily rewatch it many times, and generally I don't have bad feelings towards the movie.
Yeah.
Just a few things that could have been stronger,
Yeah,
and
I
that's
want
okay.
the
I'm okay
yeah, I
with
want
that.
it to be tighter in some
Yep.
places. But yeah, overall, yeah, I think it's a good film. So,
Yeah.
thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Catch you later.